Hey everybody, so back for part 3 of this Django walkthrough video. And in this one, I want to make an actual application. So in the first one, we did set up our project, created an app for it, and just returned a string. And then the second one, we looked at the HTML templates. This time, let's go ahead and mm, uh, make a little application. So we'll need an input form, one HTML page with an input form, and then another HTML page to show the results. And that input form is going to send stuff to our Python script where it'll be processed and then loaded in. The results will be loaded into the other form. So we'll start with the HTML form. I went and looked up the Unicode values for a couple of emojis to use on the form. Uh, we'll need those numbers here in a second. 128515 and 129314. That's just a couple of emojis. And first thing I'm going to do is save some stuff here. So I'm going to call this tip input.html. And that way the predictive text works. And type all this stuff up. Tip input. Maybe tip calculator input. So we need a form here. Hopefully some of y'all have seen this before. I'll fill in the whoops. I don't know why that predictive text did that. I'll fill in the action for the attribute here in a moment. That's very special for Django, but just to make a quick form, we need a couple of inputs. So something to give us the meal price, and that's going to be an input element with the type equal to number, and maybe a step size equal to 0.01, so 2 decimal places. Okay, good. Word wrap's on. Normally it's odd to write code with word wrap on, but for example videos, it kind of works out nicely because then we can see all the code. And that just means it's a number that goes up by pennies, which works nicely for money. And an important one, the name attribute of our HTML elements is what gets sent to the server. So you'll need to add in the name element, name attribute for the input element, and then this is what the server will receive whenever we send stuff to the server. Then I'll end that paragraph, then add another paragraph for the quality of the service, so service, and on one end of the service we'll have something lousy, and on the other end we'll put really good service. So that's what these emojis are for. So I'll grab this Unicode value here, and I just went and did a search for the, I think I searched for smiley emoji Unicode, and a whole bunch of pages with list of all the Unicode values pulled up. But to put Unicode directly, we need an ampersand for special character, then the pound sign to say we're entering the Unicode value, and as of last year, a semicolon started being required in HTML. Your browser will show a warning in the background if you don't put a semicolon at the end of the special characters. And then we can put an input, type equals range. And range is the sliders, the ones where we'll grab it and slide it back and forth. Minimum equals, I'll say 8%. That's probably a good minimum amount for a tip. Really, really lousy service should probably be higher than that, but just a small number. And you're probably thinking percents would be 0.08. If we start putting decimals in the slider, it becomes logarithmic and then it doesn't move smoothly. So what I've found over the years is just use integers on the input and divide them by 100 when we get to processing them. And a max of maybe 33%. That sounds like a good one. And then again, the server will receive this based off the name attribute. It comes in as key value pairs, and the name is the key of all the stuff about this input that goes to the server. I'll call this service. Seems like a good name for it. And in that. And then we need our submission buttons. So input type equals submit, value equals, I'll put calculate here. And I'll just skip the reset button for now. A clear button if you've seen that before. All the stuff we would normally have in a form. Except now we need Django to process the data we're going to type into these input fields and then hit the button. And to do that, it's going to be two attributes on the input form. So one of them is action, and this is what we want the server to do. And then method is how we're sending it to the server. For HTML, until you get to uploading files, it's almost always either going to be get or post. We'll pretty much never do any of the other ones. When you get to uploading entire files, it's going to be file. You could just do it as request. We catch all. But almost always it's going to be get or post. And the big difference between them is get adds it onto the URL so we can still see it. And post transfers it in the background so we can't see it. So typically you're going to put it as get when you're debugging because it's a lot easier to debug things when you can see the data in the address bar. And then switch it to post if you need to keep that data hidden later after you finish debugging it. And then action is what we want to happen when what we want the script to do. And I'm going to put display for now. I'm just going to put a one word here. So we want going to tell Django to display the results. So save that. And we could probably do a quick preview of it. We haven't wrote any of the processing yet, but if we come over here to where that's stored and just open that, there's no Django in this one. So if we just open it, we can see this. If we type in, I don't know, maybe a $5 meal and really good service. Oh, forgot the other emoji over here. There's a lousy service emoji, but I'll get that typed in. When we hit calculate, you can see it just added that data on. And there's our name attributes. So price equals what we typed in, and service equals what we moved that slider to. Forgot the other emoji, so I can type that in real quick. Let's see. It was over here. Here's the happy emoji, or one of them. There's lots and lots and lots of them. So the other end of the slider, special character with this Unicode value. So that should be all we need for that. Now we're ready to tell Python to do something with what to do when it receives the word display as the action to carry out. Or actually, we could probably make the other template real quick, the receiving template. So while we're doing HTML stuff, so I'll save that, and this will be tip output.html for a template, and tip calculator output. And down here, we'll do our Django template. So if amount, and then we'll send it something called amount. End if. Whoops. End if is one word. So if we don't get an amount, we'll just write an error message. Something went wrong. Please try again. And if we do get an amount, we'll split that up. So I'll make a paragraph here. And that paragraph is going to say something. So like, then you should probably leave amount today. And amount's going to be a dollar thing, so maybe throw a dollar sign right out front of it. and I'll make sure the string is formatted to two places when we send that. And notice how our Django placeholder just goes right in the middle of the sentence where we want that to show up. Then we have that if-else structure like we saw in the last video. So now we're ready to make the methods to receive data from this form and send the result to this template. So just like before, we'll put our methods over in the views.py script. I'm going to add some white space just because I don't like typing at the bottom of a screen. It won't hurt anything. That's just a personal preference. I like to be able to scroll past it. So we need another function to calculate our tip. I'll just call it that, calculate tip. And it's a Django function, so it's getting a request from the client. And, well, this is sending our form. So basically, this is fill in that HTML form. So we just need to return one of those render objects to the requesting client. And we'll send back tip input.html. And there's no placeholders that need filled in here. So this one doesn't need a dictionary sent. So that'll be enough for that one. And then we also need one to show the tip. So I'll call that display tip. Again, that's actually a request coming from the client. In particular, this is going to happen when the client says to run the display action, which is what happens when they click the submit button. So we'll make that request, and here we need to do our calculation. And those calculations are coming in on that URL. We just looked at that a second ago. Let's look at it again real quick. Documents and delete. This will be an important thing when debugging. You want to be able to see that stuff. So in templates, on tip input, got that other emoji added in there. So we have some sort of price, really good service. And when we hit calculate, the client sends this back to the URL. It adds display on, or we're looking for the display address. And then the question mark is called a URL query. I like to think of that as like a hook. We're going to hook on this data. And then this is what we're sending. So now we need to go set some stuff up to receive that. And that's going to come in. So price is going to be assigned that request that is being sent. Well, in particular, it's being sent with the get method. And that get is sending a dictionary that has a price key. So that's what's coming in. And obviously, if at some point later you switch the method to post, you would want to receive it on a post dictionary instead of a get dictionary. But it's coming in as a web address, so that's a string. So we need to change it to a floating point number because, well, we're going to do math with it. Same thing with our satisfaction. That's coming from the client request on the get protocol, and we gave it the name service. That probably looks a little bit better. I'll paste that there and then give the same name here, but it's a string, so since it's a part of a web address, so we have to turn it into a number to do math with it. Also service, since we use the range, range works a lot better with integers. You switch to a logarithmic scale, so you move a lot down at the left side to get a little change. And if you move just a little bit over at the right side, it gives a big change. So if you use integers, you get a nice linear scale. Any change, it changes by the same amount no matter where the slider's at. So we'll turn that into a percentage. And then our tip amount is going to be the price plus price times the service. So I guess this is the amount we're going to tip, and then we add that onto our price. Hopefully everybody understands is familiar with that process since we're Americans. That's why I went with this example, hoping it was something everybody understands. Usually I either do a tip calculator or a payroll calculator because most Americans understand those really, really well. Now that we have our numbers, we're ready to send it back to the client. So back to the requesting client, and this time use that tip output.html template and send it the dictionary, an amount key. We're looking for a key called amount, and then we're going to throw it right in the sentence, and that's going to hold the amount variable. So sending all that stuff back, once we get the calculation, now all we need to do is set up our addresses to call these particular methods. Just like we saw before, we have this list of all of the URLs it knows. So we just need to add a couple more things to this list. So for a path, I don't know, I'll put got bill. That's when we're ready to calculate our tip. And for that, we'll call the views.calculate tip method. I think that's what I called it. Yes, calculate tip. And well, we already put in that form that when the form is submitted, it's going to pass display into the URLs. So that's what we need to pick up here. We're listening for the word display. And then if we do that, we'll do the views script and the display tip method. Always a better idea to copy and paste. Computers never make typos. So there's all our methods. So we should be able to go give this a quick check. Oh, wait, can't do the check yet. So if I start PowerShell and navigate to where this is at, then have the Python interpreter, look at manage.py and do the run server method. All right, now that our server is running, we should be able to go to 127, yeah, all of that. We didn't leave anything for a blank page, so we have to call one of these. In particular, I think we're ready for got bill. You'll notice here you probably want to put something on the blank path. Every time we do something, it adds another slash and more words and slash and more words. So you probably want to have something on the blank path as well. So we're ready for got bill. And we get our form. So maybe we spent $34.56. Had a really great service. So when we calculate that, we get our total. Oh, I forgot to format it. But little typos happen. That's part of our normal process, right? So when we send that back in views, here's where we're sending it back. And it's going across the internet, so it's going to be turned into a string. That happens automatically. I'll just use format amount to point two spots as a floating point number. Did I do that backwards? That looks backwards now that I look at it. Oh no, that was right. I've been working with multiple languages, switching back and forth between them. That often happens as we learn lots of languages. They start to blend together, and then there's little changes like that. But as you can see, if we go to got bill, when we get our bill in the restaurant, so maybe we go to another restaurant, so like 14.54 and really lousy service. We calculate that, we get our total. The application is working, and hopefully those videos, I tried to list out everything. That should cover everything you'll need as far as the final projects in this course goes. Obviously, Django will do a whole lot more. If you create a Python dictionary and then instead of returning a string, just return that Python dictionary, then that's how you make an API with Django. We saw APIs last week. If your group is including that in the project. Otherwise, it's a whole lot of stuff like this. Make your HTML templates, for the inputs and the outputs, set up your methods, and have the URLs pattern call those. That's what's going to be expected at this level, and primarily this is a Python course, so going to be looking at this and the objects that you use and things like that. And I'll come back with more Django videos. There's a lot to it. Hopefully that helped to clear up a little bit of the confusion over it and maybe not seem so overwhelming. Stretch out to a couple videos you can keep coming back in reference. And this is basically what's going to be expected in this class, that you can make a small application that can return either strings or Python dictionaries, which would be returned like this, or return the HTML, the Django templates with data filling in that template appropriately. So that's what your final project's going to be. Hopefully these videos are helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you all soon.